Hey friends, so in this video, this brush that I'm gonna show you makes painting flowers so easy it almost feels like cheating. Once I started painting flowers with this type of brush, I fell in love immediately. So if you're curious and you're ready to find out what that brush is, I'm gonna go through 3 different types of flowers, painting it with this brush that I'm talking about, and then also showing how I'd paint it with my round brushes so you can compare. So if you're ready to check it out, then let's dive in. Okay, so I've used filbert brushes before. Obviously, you guys know me as the round brush gal. And I've just been kind of doing that for years and years. But I decided to test out some watercolor filbert brushes. And for flowers, this is the actual, it feels like cheating, painting flowers with a filbert brush. And because of the rounded edge, it's like a flat brush, but it has rounded corners. It emulates the actual shape of a flower petal in the shape of the brush. And you can angle it on its side, and you can kind of see, just looking at the brush, that it's the shape of a leaf. And when you press on it, it gets fatter, obviously, because it's buoyant, very bouncy, snappy hair, just like my round brushes are, same hair, but it's a different shape. So I have been absolutely obsessed with using filbert brushes for painting flowers. So I'm going to show you some examples of painting some flowers with this filbert brush. This is a size 14. I also have a size 22 for really big flowers that I do. So let me show you what I would do. We're going to do like a rose, or it could be a ranunculus on its side. So with a round brush, I would kind of hold my angle like this for my front shape petals, maybe even loop it around. So I'd have like my point press and loop for the round brush. And kind of use my like circular scrubbing motion for these top petals. And then my bottom petals, point press and loop, and do one petal in a few strokes, like so. However, with a filbert brush, obviously that was done very quickly. With a filbert brush, we could do it in much less time. So let me grab my filbert. So I'm gonna, whichever direction the petal is pointing, this is the top edge of my petal at all times. So I'm just going to press down. There's my petal. Press down. And maybe on its side, give it a little, like a petal on its side, just by switching the angle of the brush. And then I want a petal that's going towards or falling away from the flower. I'm just gonna flip my brush upside down. Like so. And it just gives you that natural, soft, rounded edge for the tops of your flowers. It's much less effort. And it's just the way it feels is really bouncy. And I also just like the overall look better. It gives you more separation, easier separation in white space. And then for your leaves, way less complicated than with a round brush. So I'm just pointing the top edge of the hair of the brush towards where the tip of the leaf is, and I'm pressing down. So instead, with the round brush, leaves are probably the more complicated thing you would paint, where you're pressing, releasing to get that fine tip at the end, and doing it in 2 strokes instead of 1. It'll give you a different look, but doing this with a round brush is much more complicated than just literally pushing your brush down on the paper. So there's a simple little rose type of flower. Let's do these like Gerbera daisies. They're like really, they kind of look like dandelion flowers. So we have our center shape here. So for your round brush, you're just gonna paint a little disc shape. I'm gonna do yellow ochre and lemon yellow deep. But for my petals, I'm just gonna kind of press around, do some in multiple strokes, some I can just kind of paint in. And then our little stemmy guy, like so. So that one's not too complicated with a round brush, but for the filbert brush, it's still a little bit simpler. So we're just gonna blob for the center. Grab our bright yellow and use side of the brush like so. So just using the top edge of the brush for some really thin marks. And then stems, I will say, are still, I still prefer doing them with the round brush because you will get this like point. You'll never get like a flat bottom. So I still prefer going in with my round brush after to fill in the stems with the filbert brush. But for petals and these bigger flowers, filbert brush wins. Okay, so now we're gonna paint an open anemone. And again, anemone has those rounded top petals. So for a rounded top petal using a, round brush, you're gonna have to do it in multiple strokes. So I'm gonna start at the base of the petal, point, press, curve in, and then fill it in, point, press, curve in like that. And go around wherever the stamen or bulb area would be. So a few more steps using a round brush for all of your rounded top petal flowers. And obviously adding that darkened center. One thing I do like about these round brushes is that I can use the base of the handle and pull up these little veins, which I'll still do when I'm using my filbert brush, but the filbert brushes I have don't have pointed handles. And then for the center, which anemones have this like dark velvety blue center, just gonna paint in that circular shape. Just do a couple dots with the tip of the brush. That's one thing that is very good about the round brush is the use of the tip for stems or for little dots like this. So that is something that I will still have those round brushes around for. But for these anemone petals using a filbert brush, all we have to do is stroke, stroke, or just even one stroke. And point the brush in line with the direction of the petal. And then we can add our darker color. Our stamen, typically I'd wait for this to dry more so it doesn't spread as much, but here we are. So again, this is a little more difficult with the filbert brush. You can still do it if you angle it on the corner. But there you go. And some leaves. Just kind of using the top edge of the brush and dancing around. Anemone leaves are really jagged and kind of spiky. Very easy to do with filbert brush, with my round brush for doing anemone leaves. I'm just kind of using the tip and scribbling around. So it's still easy, but I like the look of the filbert brush a little bit more. So overall, the filbert brush is really fun for these fatter petals with the rounded top. And I love using it on its side. It gives you that side fate where you're just seeing a petal on its side. It's very bouncy, very springy, and super fun to use for florals, and has become a quick, fast favorite brush for painting flowers. There you have it. As I mentioned before, the hair of the brush, no matter what shape it is very important to get the right hair for your watercolor. So synthetic sable is one of my favorite types of hair for watercolor brushes. I have a blog post that's the ultimate guide of watercolor brushes that I'll link in this video, so you can check that out. So if you're wanting to experiment with different types of brushes, maybe different hair or shape, check out that blog post because it goes into detail on the types of hair that are best for watercolor, the types of shapes that you would use for different types of strokes and whatnot and effects. Velvet Touch from Princeton, their Velvet Touch series makes a great filbert brush. And obviously we'll link to the brushes that I used today that I've always had on hand, just have never used them. So make sure you check those out. And as always, thank you so much for watching our tutorials. If you need further resources, make sure you go check out that blog post I mentioned. Also, the Complete Beginner's Guide to Watercolor Flowers on my YouTube channel is a really in-depth, multiple hours worth of floral watercolor, everything you need to know about floral watercolor. So I cover sketching basic flowers and leaves so you understand the basic shapes of the flowers, different types of flowers, and then loose style floral watercolor and realistic style watercolor all combined for a super duper in-depth, basically floral watercolor course on my YouTube channel for free. So make sure you check that out. I also have a book on watercolor flowers called Everyday Watercolor Flowers that's available on Amazon and most local bookstores around the globe. So make sure you check it out. We'll link to it here. And I have a free floral watercolor ebook that is free. Why wouldn't you get it? So sign up for that to be sent straight to your inbox. Below or in this video, we'll link to that floral watercolor ebook. As always, much love to all of you for watching these videos, for liking, for commenting on your favorite part of the video, or maybe if you tried something out and wanted to mention it or whatever. All of the engagement is super, super helpful for us and really encouraging. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next tutorial.